The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals participating in the show. All persons described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions along with adult language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
On September 12th, 2008, in California's San Fernando Valley, a commuter train carrying 225 riders collided with a freight train going 83 miles per hour. 25 people died and is known as the Chatsworth crash. However, something strange occurred that delves into the paranormal. Or could it possibly just been a glitch? You're listening to the Mysterious Brews podcast, and tonight we bring you the case of Charles Peck.
Welcome to a deep, dark, dank, moist basement somewhere in the bowels of Georgia. Well, Coach, I hate to break it to you, but this Friday and Saturday is summertime in the South. 98 air temperature, heat index 102.
It's getting hot, man.
We all gonna have the swamp ass.
Oh, yeah.
But since it's summertime...
You gotta carry a towel with you.
And a change of fucking clothes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
What you drinking?
Drinking the old Bearded Iris pep talk.
Oh, I just cracked me open a nice cold Coke Zero.
I love Bearded Iris, but I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if since they started distributing out of state of the Tennessee, every time I happen to open one of their beers after it's been in my Friginator, the damn thing explodes like a volcano.
Every time I come in the kitchen.
You in the kitchen.
Eating all the hog maws. Eating all the pig feet.
But anyway, so if you...
Even if it's been at rest?
Yes, that's what I don't understand. It's been sitting out in me old can coozer for a good 10 minutes, so it should have not been so disruptive. Now, if you will remember, we fell in love with Bearded Iris in our first episode.
It's still good.
Yep. I wound up finding their double home style. It's even better than the original. It's not too powerful, but if you go triple home style, that thing's 9.3%.
Oh,
you better
shit.
be careful, brother.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Because I did not realize that, and I got through cutting grass one day and sitting on the tailgate. And I was drinking it, fairly quickly because I was hot. It's hot. And all of a sudden, it hit me, and I looked down, and I'd had about half of it, and I was like, oh, shit, I need to slow down. But anyway, let's get into the business. We have a new patron. Also, the post office is about to get a sternly worded letter from me because they are screwing us on these decals, man. People still ain't getting their shit. But anyway.
Or for real?
For realio. So we have one.
Who ain't getting their shit?
Since, let me go back. Where is it at? Since we still have people from March that ain't got theirs. March. And it's not like I waited till May to mail them out. So I'm going back through sending. So if you're a patron and you're listening to this and you have not heard and you've not gotten your decals, shoot us an email at mysteriousbrews@gmail.com or message us on the old patron app and let me know. I kind of sent some people some direct messages today, but we do have 3 new patrons
We have Ashley Huffman. Shout out to you. Cat Will 04, formerly or also known as Kathleen, at the shout out to you. And Paula McLean at the $3 sticker tier. Welcome. Welcome to the shit show. Good God, man. Find the mute button. So,
the
Coach,
dog hit it, man.
Coach, you got a little love on the Patreon thing. Aisling,
I did?
Yep, Aisling says he loves the way Coach says dairy girls.
I still say it's Deary because that's how it's spelled, but you know, I was corrected many times.
No. You corrected? How? Just don't get it.
Never.
All right. So, ladies and gents, let's get into this one. We have wrapped a big old bow on Ray Rivera. If you are a patron, you got that one on Thursday evening, 4 days in advance. Heater sent some hate.
Here's the thing. Here's something somebody pointed out to me that we didn't really cover. What if that hole in the ceiling was already there?
It's a damn good question.
Because that part of the hotel, basically it wasn't a hotel anymore. It was like offices, and a lot of the places weren't used anymore. So
right.
what if the hole was already there and they just used that as an opportunity to stuff him there to throw off the investigators?
That's a great point, brother. I don't think anybody's ever thought about that because I didn't see it in any of my research.
Well, I mean, think about it. The building's not being very well maintained.
And you can come and go as you please because they said that the offices up there, nobody kind of checked on anything. The room he was found in was across from some offices, and they had smelt something the day he disappeared or the day after he disappeared. So that would lead you to believe that he had been put there within mere hours of disappearing.
And I mean, the hole is so small that he basically would have had to put his legs together and his arms, at his side and go through it like a dart.
Yeah, and if you're taking a flying leap off of the building, you're flailing your arms and I take that back. That would be if you were trying to land on that roof part. If you're just jumping to commit suicide, it doesn't matter. But I wonder, I don't know. That is a damn good point.
I promise you, if I'm flailing.
Well, see, I was thinking you'd be flailing your arms and your legs trying to get out as far out as you can. But if you're committing suicide, you don't give a shit. You're just jumping. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about that. That leaves a whole new aspect of the case. I mean, we talked about his shins being broken and in a manner that did not fit a suicide.
Yeah, and that kind of solidifies he was maybe tortured before his death.
I'm pretty sure he was, and maybe they just stuck him there. That would explain why his sunglasses and his flip-flops and his cell phone are all good.
Yeah, because they probably just slid them across the roof. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. It's weird. It's definitely a weird-ass case, man. Like, he deserved 3 episodes. He deserves more. But again, if you want a good idea of the case, go on Netflix and look at Unsolved Mysteries Episode 1 because they do a much better job than we do.
All right, so let's dive into this week's, taking a shift here, doing a little paranormal, a little mysterious.
Yeah, this one is weird.
This was a user request, hell. A fan request, and I do apologize. I believe it was on Instagram, but I'll have to check. Charles Peck, the great case of Charles Peck and the Chatsworth crash. So on September 12th, 2008.
Hey, I'm from Chatsworth,
California.
Oh, no. But it is it's Chatsworth, California, but my hometown in Georgia is actually called Chatsworth.
I was going to say, I don't think there's many commuter trains going through Chatsworth, Georgia.
Oh, God, no. There's nothing in Chatsworth. They don't even have a Walmart.
I bet they got a DG.
Oh, dude, there's like $15 Dollar Generals in that county.
Y'all got one of them there Dollar General markets?
Yeah, we sure do. In the big city of Eaton, or Eton, as they're called.
We are getting one down the road from where I live, about 5 miles. We'll have to frequent it.
I'm pretty sure, like, that it's the town I grew up in. It's the town I work in now. I live in the next town over called Dalton. Dalton has 3 Walmarts. Chatsworth has none. And it doesn't have a single, like, sit-down chain restaurant. No Applebee's, no Longhorn, no nothing. I don't know any town in the country like that.
Y'all don't even have a Sonic?
We have a Sonic, but that's not sit-down. You drive up. It's a fast food restaurant.
Well, I understand that because I was about to throw some shade on Chatsworth because there are literal towns in Arkansas that I drive through that have a population sign of less than 500, and they have at least one red light, a gas station, and a Sonic.
Well, they have a Sonic. I mean, we're not, completely behind the times.
All right. So on September 12th, 2008, Charles Peck was riding a Metrolink commuter train in Los Angeles, California. After his flight from Utah, he was working for an airline in Salt Lake City, and I think I saw where it was Delta, but I'm not 100% sure.
It was. He worked for Delta.
And he was in Los Angeles to interview for a position at Van Nuys Airport. Now, Charles's fiancee, Andrea Katz, was from Westlake Village, and Westlake is a city located in Los Angeles County. Now, Charles and Andrea were wanting to plan a wedding, but decided that they would hold off in the planning stages until they both could live in the same state. She would be waiting to pick him up at the other end of his train, which was the last stop in Moore Park at 4:45 p.m. Unfortunately, at 4:22 p.m. in Chatsworth, California, the train Charles was on collided with a freight train going the opposite direction.
Yeah, they're going to say that the conductor of the commuter train was texting.
Yes, he was.
He got distracted
by 2 teenage boys that wanted to be conductors. Now, the collision was estimated.
Hey, do you remember the Water Boy when we coached football together?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't he a conductor now?
Hell no.
Yes, he is. Trap?
No, he works for Georgia Power.
No, he does not. He was a train conductor.
Swear to God, he works for the power company.
You're a lying sack of shit.
Okay, well then, I'm a lying sack of shit. You pull him up on the Facebook and get his profile. Get him on LinkedIn.
I'm going to hit his LinkedIn up. If you hear weird noises again, I'm dealing with a motherfucking puppy.
Not just a regular. So the collision was estimated.
I got some good feedback about the puppy, but still, he's not trying to fight. He don't try to fight the cat until I log on to record. Now they're like, it's on like Donkey Kong.
The collision was estimated that it was as if the train had hit a brick wall at a speed of 83 miles per hour. There were 225 passengers on board, and what is known...
Hey, no, shut the fuck up. I just brought him up. He is the owner of Northwest Georgia Outdoor Solutions, LLC, but his former job said train conductor at Norfolk Southern.
I stand corrected.
You can shut the fuck up.
I stand corrected. Oh, I wanted to, before we go any further, because we're all over the place this evening, Heater had some hate. He was banking part 1 and part 2 of Ray Rivera and didn't know we were going to do 3 parts. And so he binged both of them and got the old, punch in the gut when we gave him you'll have to wait till next week. Oh, I got some serious. He said that he hoped we both stubbed our pinky toes twice.
I heard some similar stuff to that. Somebody was like, what the fuck? I was like, well, we said at the very beginning it was probably going to be 3 parts.
That's true. Back to the case. There were 225 passengers on board, and what is known as the Chatsworth train accident injured 135 passengers with 25 fatalities. Now, Andrea was on her way to Moore Park when she heard about the news of the train collision on the radio. Charles's parents also lived in the area, so they joined Andrea as they waited for news from the crash site on Charles's status. Not long after hearing about the crash and still waiting for Charles's parents, Andrea would receive a call from Charles. When she answered the phone, all she could hear was static on the other end. Andrea's instincts kicked in and she begins to encourage Charles to remain calm, and she told him help was on the way and that things would be okay. For 11 hours, Charles continued to call Andrea, his children, his stepmother, his brother, and his sister. When his family members picked up, they too only heard static on the other end of the phone. Now, the phone was not just pinging one phone. It was calling multiple phones, and specifically Charles's family's phones. Now, there are phone records of this, so it actually occurred. We're talking cell phones pinging off of towers and phones showing a record of calls coming in to his family from his phone. When the family attempted to call him back, as many of them did, calls went straight to Charles's voicemail. Now, this is the case when the person you were calling is either on the phone with someone else or the phone has been powered off, especially in 2008. The only other
or if they just don't like you and they reject your call.
That is true. You got to be quick, though. Got to be quick.
Like I do with you.
All the time, I get the reject. Text me. I don't want to talk. The only other explanation would be if the phone had been turned off. But in total, his family members received 35 calls during 11 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Like, you can't just chalk that up to a glitch or a computer malfunction. We're talking 35 calls to various people in his contacts. Basically, the most important people in his life.
Correct. So this begs the question, was the phone malfunctioning for 11 hours? The calls were determined to end around 3 a.m. the next day. And there is actual evidence that these calls were going out from his phone. Another question is, who hung up when the family members received the call? Were they dropped after the static, or was it the family member eventually was like, I'm going to hang up now, help is on the way? We know that the calls were made and ended, and then made and ended again as it started to call other family members. Now, search and rescue teams tried to find Charles and other victims of the crash by tracing phone calls from the time, but specifically his phone calls. They had previously searched the rubble in the first train, but decided to try again since these cell phone calls were consistently and actively pinging towers and calling phones. Roughly an hour after the phone call stopped, which is 11 hours after the crash, search and rescue are called back to the scene. Rescuers actually find Charles, and he is unfortunately deceased. According to investigators, Charles is thought to have died instantly from the crash. Now, rescuers never did find Charles's phone. And upon investigating the crash, the National Transportation Safety Board, or the NTSB, found out that, like Coach stated earlier, the engineer of the train, Robert Sanchez, had run a red light due to 2 teenagers who were interested in becoming an engineer had been texting Mr. Sanchez. And in an ironic sequence of events, Sanchez would miss that red light because he had his head down texting. Sanchez's final text was sent just 22 seconds before the collision. Now, the NTSB stated that if the train had, quote, positive train control, end quote, as it's called, or PTC, the Chatsworth collision could have been prevented. The PTC system prevents collisions and speeding using GPS, radios, and computers. And they use all three of those to notify the engineer of the train when to slow down and when to stop. It's basically a way for trains to communicate with the surrounding. The way it was written in the article I read said that it was a way for the train to communicate with the surroundings, which is kind of odd, but I think it's more a way of the train communicating with the other trains in the system as well as the transportation hub itself. Now, as a result of the Chatsworth collision, the U.S. Congress passed the Rail Safety Improvement Act of 2008. Now, this act required positive train control to be installed in most trains by the end of 2015. However, they did not pass any funding to go along with this, so not all trains are equipped with a system due to a lack of money, shortfalls in the budget, and the cost of the system. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is about the facts of the case. So we're going to get into the theories now. The theories.
So it's going to be a short episode, bro.
It is, man. There's nothing much out there about anything else factual-wise going down.
Well, though this case needed to be covered, I mean, truth be told, we're just giving it as a buffer because the next case we're doing is going to be, like 3 parts again. We didn't want to bog people down with 2-3-parters in a row.
That is true.
But
that is so true.
I don't know, man. You think you can chalk this up to a glitch?
Well, no, that's what I was about to say. The first theory is a technological glitch or anomaly. And many people have pointed out that what the calls from Charles was most likely a technological error, especially since the calls only had the sound of static and any return calls were sent directly to voicemail. Again, something that happens when the phone is either busy, off, or otherwise unavailable. It's been theorized that the phone was going through its contacts or recent contacts and dialing those numbers. A hole in this theory is that contacts and recent contacts are 2 different lists. If his phone had been recovered, investigators could have determined by the phone and phone records if there were any parallels to a certain list of contacts. You could cross-reference other calls Charles had made in the past week or 2, and that should have lined up. It is also worth noting that his family members potentially were not the only people called. Again, if there were a way to see his contact list, that would lead to some answers to this theory. There were no information out on the interwebs as to whether other contacts were called or other people reported getting a call from him. Now, we also do not know the distribution of the 35 calls, because if it were an even spread of 35 calls across 7 people, that's 5 calls each, that would lead credence to the technological glitch of cycling through the contacts. However, another fly in the ointment is you would assume that Charles would have had the company contact of who he was going to interview with in his phone. If that person wasn't called, then you can shoot the technological glitch theory to shreds. Now, as far as I could find, they didn't report any sort of call like that. Now, another hole in this theory is that not all of the people called had the same last name. If it were cycling through his contacts, one would think it would go down the list alphabetically.
Absolutely. But maybe it was his recent calls.
Well, the flip. The flip side to that is his family members could have been marked as favorites and the phone dialed from that list. Now, another point that strengthens this theory is that most phones had a speed dial back in 2008. And that's where you could preset the actual numbers 1 through 9 on your phone with your most called numbers. And it was accessed couple of ways, but one of the more common ways was by pressing star and then holding down the number, and it would automatically dial who you had preset.
Hey, I'm going to take a sidebar. I just got an alert from ESPN. The town I used to live in, Cartersville, the fabled home of Trevor Lawrence, they just said that he signed $275 million extension, $200 million guaranteed, and he receives $142 million just for signing his name.
Damn.
Did you imagine?
No, I can't. I wish
just
I could.
to play football.
I wish I could.
Wow.
Dang.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to break your flow. I just thought that was crazy.
Well, no, man, it was at a perfect time, because another theory is that it's a little morbid, but we're going to cover it anyway, and it could have been a prank. Maybe someone found Charles's phone and cruelly called his family members to give them false hope.
That would be awful. I mean, but they never found his phone.
Nope, they didn't.
That's the big thing, is they never found it.
Mm-mm. Now, this is unlikely.
So it could have possibly been taken by somebody.
It is. It's unlikely because not all of his family members shared the same last name, so this piece of shit that took the phone would have to have known who to call to just prank his family members. Also, the level of shittiness to call for 12 hours is a little too much for a troll or a prank. So it's not a whole lot of credence, but there are grandioso pieces of shit out there that would do that. So another theory is a melting of the first two. What if the phone was found by another victim who was either injured or fatally wounded, but they kind of picked up the phone and just started speed dialing through the speed dial list of 9 numbers trying to get someone to answer? The phone's speaker could have been damaged unbeknownst to them, and they cycled back through each time hoping the person that they had previously answered could now hear them. The problem with this theory is that it would not have gone on for 12 hours because the person would have either been rescued or passed away before then. Now, the next theory is very common, and it is that Charles Peck's calls were actually a paranormal event. Charles had passed away immediately upon impact, according to investigators. This theory centers around that perhaps his spirit was reaching out to his family members as a way to say goodbye. Some people who believe this theory add that he may have wanted his body to be found, possibly to give his family some closure. His spirit would have activated his cell phone. This would give search and rescue a way to, quote, ping his cell phone. Now, some paranormal investigators state that this is an example of a supernatural concept known as anomalous telephone contact, or ATC. This includes cell phones, text messages, and even EVP recordings of ghosts and spirits. Now, ATC cases often involve static, and if a voice is heard, it is usually just one voice, but in rare cases, multiple voices have been heard. Now, there's a couple of psychologists from Paris, that's Paris for you uneducated folks, and they are one D. Scott Rogo and Raymond Baylis. They are the ones that actually introduced ATC in their 1979 book titled Phone Calls from the Dead. They found that in 27% of ATC cases, most of the calls arrived during a time of crisis. 25% occurred within the 7 days after a death. 22% of the calls they studied were within 6 months, and 10% of calls were received on an anniversary of an emotional event. So it's not like an accidental one-off that the ATCs happen to be around emotional high-energy moments. Now, Rogo and Baylis would begin their research after they read an article about 2 friends named Lee Epps and Don D. Owens who experienced something similar. After years of living in the same neighborhood, Mr. Epps moved away from Toledo, Ohio, so Don would communicate with him via phone. And on October 26, 1968, around 10:30 p.m., Don's wife answered one of Mr. Epps' calls. He sounded scared and said, quote, "Sis, tell Don I'm feeling real bad. Never felt this way before. Tell him to get in touch with me the minute he comes in. It's important, sis." And then Epps abruptly hangs up. Now, Don's wife tried calling him back, but couldn't get Mr. Epps to answer. So when she called back later that night, she learns that Mr. Epps had been in a coma since the previous day, and he actually passed away around 10:30 p.m., the time she received the call. So basically, either right before he passes, while he's in a coma, or shortly after he passes is when that call was made. So Rogo and Bayless would come across more instances of ATCs. In their 2-year studies, they did have a difficult time separating true ATC instances from hoaxes, but eventually they would concur that ATCs must actually exist. They also believe that they may be related to EVP recordings, as the calls appear to be transmitted electromagnetically.
Let me tell you, of all the things about ghosts that creep me out, man, EVP recordings just, I can't. I just can't. They're so creepy.
The spirit box freaks me out.
Well, I think that's along the same lines, though. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, come on, bro. It's like almost the same thing.
It's similar, okay? I'll say it's
like
similar.
Super close.
Wow. So Charles's call is eerily similar to Mr. Epps' call. Both were in a time of crisis, and both had already deceased by the time the calls went out. The main difference being that no one heard Charles's voice, and he repeatedly called for the following 11 hours. So the question is this a case of anomalous telephone contact, an ATC, which is similar to an EVP? Is it a prank? Or is it an unfortunate technological error? The main thing to keep in mind is that there are records that the calls actually went through, and Charles's cell phone is how they ultimately located his body. So what says you, Coach?
I'm not sure. I'm on the fence. I mean, I want to keep this podcast grounded in the fact that we don't just buy into all kinds of paranormal.
We're making up new words. Welcome to the club.
Making up new word, man. Paranormal, but I don't know, man. Maybe his spirit just really wanted to reach out, and it's definitely odd. 35 calls cannot be written off as a glitch. It just can't.
Not over 11 hours, I wouldn't think. There's got to be something to it.
I mean, you're going to say that, okay, maybe something was pressing against the phone. If that's true,
see, that goes back to
it would call the same number every time.
And that goes back to who's ending the call when it's placed. Is the family members waiting, or is the call being ended? Does it seem like it's being ended on Charles's side?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I didn't see anything in my research about that, but yeah, it's like, I mean, I would say if it was a mechanical thing, like something pressing on the phone or it got stuck under something or whatever, it would simply just call the same number over and over again. But it's calling different people.
Yeah, I think it is
over 11 hours. That's pretty amazing.
I think it's
I don't know if you can just chalk
people.
it up to coinkydink. I just don't.
I don't either. I think there is something else at play here. I don't know. It's hard for me to fathom the combination of either it's a technological glitch where it's cycling through, or the other one is someone on that train found his phone and was trying to speed dial, but nobody knows what kind of phone it was. 2008 could have been an iPhone by then, I believe. So that would kind of
absolutely.
That would have kind of dispelled the speed dial aspect of it. BlackBerry probably had a speed dial, but again, I'm thinking Nokia, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know, man. I really don't know. I lean more to it being paranormal, that he somehow was able to try and get through to them. I don't know. I really don't. I wish they could have found the phone. That would have helped tremendously, but it is definitely an odd case. There are several other, I guess you could call them ghost calls, is a way of looking at it. Bedtime Stories did like a 20-minute episode on YouTube. I think they've got 4 or 5 in there. It's, I don't know, man. It is definitely weird.
I mean, I would like to think that the power of your love or whatever you want to, your spirit, whatever you want to say it, could reach out beyond the grave. I mean, we covered that one lady who rolled her car, and the baby was dangling.
Mm-hmm.
And we have body cam video, but they didn't capture anything. But the body cam captured audio of the woman pleading for help, and they found her dead.
Yeah, the car was upside down in the river.
I mean,
and that baby should have perished from hypothermia.
Exactly. I mean, there's audio proof of people reaching out beyond the grave to save others or to, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, so maybe Charles's spirit was so strong that he wanted to make sure that everyone was okay and reach out one last time. I mean, I want to believe that.
I do too. I mean, ultimately, just trying to give them some closure would be the way that I kind of lean towards. And to give credit,
I just can't see just chalking it up to error. It's not, or a glitch or whatever you want to say. I just can't see that.
If it was one call, or if it had cycled through, say, 7 people in like 3 or 4 minutes, and that phone was hanging up before they could say anything, then yeah, you could chalk it up to a glitch. That's why I would love to know who was ending the phone call. And to give credit where credit is due, it was on Instagram from the username known as I Know Nothing 85. She recommended it. If you'll remember, she stumbled upon ours by listening to the Joe Rogan, and all of a sudden it switched to us. Talk about a glitch.
What now?
Yeah. I don't know. I read this a while back. This was back quite a while back. I stumbled across you looking for a particular story and got hooked. I will eventually end up a Patreon supporter, but I need to tell you a story real quick. I was listening to Joe Rogan, and all of a sudden it was you guys. I figured you were doing an advertisement on his pod and was so excited for you. Alas, my phone, it just ghostly decided to switch favorites for some reason, but I'm listening to you instead of Joe Rogan, and I think it's kind of cool. Love you guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
We
need that glitch to happen a whole bunch.
Yes, we do. And she has.
If we get 1/3 of Joe Rogan's audience, we would not have to teach anymore.
That is correct. Or if just one of our super fans wins the lottery. She recommended this on May 23rd. She's like you. She sent it at 2:43 a.m. She was up perusing the interwebs.
Yeah, that happens. I've been there before.
So, My final answer is I'm leaning towards paranormal. I just can't say it's technological glitch, man. I just can't.
I mean, honestly, I think it's got to. I mean, again, I hate to say it, but yeah.
All right, so we talked about this last week, and we're going to go with it right off the cuff. We're going to hit you with a top 5 sides when it comes for us Southern boys going to eat barbecue. Now,
Oh shit! I'm not ready for this.
yes, you are. I'll go first so that you can make your. You said it was only like 3 items. That's all you get.
That's what I'm saying. I don't have 5 because I don't eat vegetables.
That's true.
I don't eat vegetables. You're not gonna tell me your potato salad, your fucking pasta salad, all that bullshit. Your deviled eggs. Hell no. You know what I hate? Like, I told my mother when I was 16 that I was never going to eat green beans again. Ever.
But
And I tell people that I hate green beans, and they're like, well,
you've never
you
tried
just haven't
mine.
had my green beans.
With stewed tomatoes.
You fuck about your green beans? Is there cocaine in them? Because that's the only way I'm willing to try it.
I will say this. I like green beans. But there's
Hell no.
a barbecue restaurant near here. I don't even know if they still have this as a side. They used to deep fry green beans and serve a remoulade sauce with it. Holy God, it was so good.
Remoulade?
Remoulade.
You mean Romulade?
Pretty sure it's called remoulade, but okay.
It is not.
Okay, Captain
Remoulade.
Cajun.
Jesus Christ, man. You
Yeah.
fucking you going to call them ramen noodles?
Yeah, they're ramen
Roman?
noodles. They're ramen noodles.
You going to eat you some Roman noodles?
Yep. Right after I ate my ramens. All right, so my top 5 in so I have to go shit. I have to go baked beans number 5.
I mean, baked beans are okay. They're not the best. They're not my favorite bean.
What's your number
I
5?
like red beans and rice.
Oh, I do
You're gonna
too.
make me some beans.
God, I
Make
love me some red beans and rice. What's your number 5? I mean, it can be the same thing since you only have 3 favorites. It can be 5, 4, and 3.
I mean, shit, I guess if I'm going to do 5, I only have 3 favorites. So I'm going to go with baked beans because I don't fucking know.
All right. Number 4 for me would have to be some kind of bread. Cornbread, biscuit, white bread.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that for sure. Like some fucking Texas toast.
Yeah, I'm not putting those carbs in my belly when all that protein is sitting there.
I mean, some nice-ass buttered, perfectly golden brown Texas toast. I'm down with that for sure. Let's go with that with my number 4 as well. I didn't even think about bread as a side. I just thought it was part of the barbecue.
All right, number 3 for me will have to be, you can tell your story on this one. My number 3 is a tie between French fries and onion rings.
Oh, you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, brother.
Well, I coached with a guy. He was the funniest man I've ever met that never intended to be funny. And we won 2 games. We won our first game and our last game. And after the last game, we're sitting in the coach's locker room, and my high school wrestling coach, which I was coaching with, said, "Hey, man, it's the seniors' last game. You need to go out there and give them a pep talk, something for them to remember you by." He said, "You think I should?" He said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Okay." So he goes out in the locker room, and he says, "Everybody gather round." And every football player on that entire team come in and took a knee. He said, "I've been told that I'm supposed to inspire my seniors to give them some advice to live by." He said, "So I got something for you." And he literally said, "Never order French fries when you can get onion rings." And then he literally left the room. Every kid was like, "What the fuck just happened?" and a gentleman that I coach with now, my high school wrestling coach's son, who's the head wrestling coach at the school I work at. I'm his assistant. He looked at me one day, and we were talking about it, and he looked at me one day, and he was like, I do. I follow that. I always order onion rings. So I've never ordered fries in my life.
All right, so my number 2 is potato salad.
Did we skip 3? Did I skip 3?
Yeah, you skipped 3. Sorry. I said French fries / onion rings. What's your number 3?
I would go with loaded baked potato.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Loaded baked potato.
Loaded tater.
Well, you usually get loaded baked potatoes. I usually get French fries, which is going to be my number 2.
French fries is your number 2. Tater salad is my number 2. All right, my number 1, Brunswick stew.
I didn't even think about Brunswick stew. My number 1 is going to be mac and cheese, but I've been to a few places that do what they call redneck lasagna. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes.
It's where they dump Brunswick stew on top of the mac and cheese. That shit is excellent.
It is good. Now, the only reason I didn't put mac and cheese on my list is because my wife has ruined me and my son. She makes a homemade mac and cheese with like 3 or 4 different cheeses. I just cannot eat mac and cheese out, man. I just can't do it. Because I'm disappointed every time. There's nothing better than hers.
Who better than whose?
My wife's.
Oh yeah, she Arlo, man. She knows what she's doing.
Yes, she does.
She's definitely one of a kind.
Yes, she is.
I put up with you
for 25 years. It'll be 25 years this October, bro.
I don't know what kind of medal to give her, but Sainthood. She needs one for sure.
Sainthood. It's sainthood, brother. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, I think the Pope is considering her for sainthood right now.
I have to agree with you.
Did you see where they made like the first millennial saint? Did you see this?
Yes.
That is weird.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know what it takes to be a saint, but if you're playing Fortnite, you might not be one.
No, I agree with you.
But they did. They made him one. And he died like really young. I can't remember exactly what they said happened to him.
Yeah, I didn't click on the link either. I just saw it. I was like, I
clicked on the link, but I didn't read it. I was looking for pretty pictures.
Well, Coach, you got anything else besides NFL contracts and sainthoods?
Brother, you know I don't.
Deuces.